Welcome, gentlemen, to another episode of the Warrior 3 podcast. I'm the host, Dr. Brandon Schreiner, and founder of Warrior3Project.com and the Warrior 40 Challenge. On this episode, I've got a great friend of mine, Pastor Dave Stewart. Great guy, awesome leader. We talk all things leadership, from if you run a company, you're leading a church, or you're just trying to be and working to be a better dad and husband. We've got amazing concepts. Hope you enjoy the episode. If you're out there and you're just really struggling, our whole mission and goal here is to equip and empower men to live, lead, and love strong. If you're struggling in those particular areas, go to warrior40challenge.com. We've created a 40-day challenge: nutrition, fitness, leadership, and marriage coaching with some of the best in the world that you can be a part of every month. So you get monthly subscription, all the workouts, all the nutrition, all the biblical counseling, everything that you need to be a stronger man. Enjoy the episode. Well, Dave, thank you so much for being on the Warrior 3 podcast. I know we've kind of talked about it in the past, and it's finally here, and had a little bit of hiccup there.
Yeah, it's taking a minute, but glad to do it, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So before we get started, and we're going to talk on leadership today, and which is one of those topics where I feel like we could be here for days.
Long time.
I've been, spending hours and hours like listening to the YouTube with John Maxwell and just like the depth and all that kind of stuff. But I just want you to know that I specifically had you, on this podcast because I don't ask everybody to be on the podcast. I'm kind of in this season right now where balance is really important to me. And I think that's a word that we just don't like to hear. Actually, it's a word I've even heard in high level leadership where it's like, well, balance doesn't exist. And, a dad of, multiple boys and different companies and things like that, I think I crave balance.
Yeah.
And so I just, you're one of those guys that I was just kind of just pulled to because I feel like you're very balanced. Now, maybe I don't know behind the scenes, but I just, I know you well enough to know that, you show up to workouts, and, I don't get a lot of people in ministry that love to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like you're just with your kids, and, I've seen you around your wife, you're just solid. And I think nobody's perfect, but, your food, the way you steward your physical body. I mean, you're a pastor. You're a great leader. I mean, your development, your passion for developing people.
Yeah, thanks.
I feel like you're pretty balanced. And I just, that's
you could
important.
call me once a week and just say that. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, affirmation, right?
Yeah.
So, before we get into it and we kind of dive into some, pretty deeper questions of leadership, like just give me the backstory. So, why did you get into ministry? Like, why has leadership and developing people and being on a large staff and, different cultures, different people, like where did this all start for you?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words. I think for me, everything started teenage years, grew up in church, and man, I didn't really want to have anything to do with it. If I'm honest, when I was a kid, I remember my grandfather was a pastor, has this amazing testimony, and I just thought, man, I don't have that testimony. Like, he was hardcore Marine, alcoholic, gambler, amazing tent revival service, flipped his life around, and like within, I think, months, he was pastoring a church. It was just this wild transformation, right? And so I just remember growing up in a really stable home, thinking like, I don't have that kind of crazy story, And I think so through high school and everything, I was always connected to church, but I didn't really want that future. I didn't want to be in ministry. I actually went to pursue something different in school my first year. So went to a college, biomedical engineering is what I was going for. And I had my plan A, plan B, and then, got out of plan C, which was really plan A. And then threw all that in the air. And so pursued ministry, had this amazing encounter with Jesus, and felt called to ministry. And as I started to tell people, I had just some really respected people in my life just say, finally you got it. Like, they all knew, but I never felt that pressure from anybody else. So anyway, long story short, Bible college, served in different capacities in different churches, different sizes, denominations, denominational, non-denominational. So I've sat in a lot of seats. I've observed some really great leaders. And I've sat under some that weren't always at their best. And so I think in every scenario, I've always picked up things. We've had conversations at home about, oftentimes you learn from those negative experiences the best, and you can take things away and realize, okay, this isn't how I want to do it. So after a couple different experiences, we settled into being able to plant our own church within an organization out in California. So we were in Burbank, California. Did it the hard way, parachuted in, knew nobody, had no real startup congregation. Wasn't this huge fundraising event where somebody launched us with a ton of money. It was, my wife and I and 4 kids living in a city that we've never been to, doing something we've never done, and trying to reach people we've never met. And so, but over 7.5-ish years, we had just amazing God success moments, and we were able to walk away with everything in a good place. Came back to Ohio, born and raised here, went west for a while, came back, and was able to serve in a large church, and then now serving in what would also be considered a large church. Mm-hmm. But we've sat in a lot of seats, been in leadership role, been assistant, been youth, been a lot of different spots. And I think what I fell in love with early on was helping people become the best version of themselves. And so whether that was students, wanting to help see students and next gen kids become the best version of who they could be, or it was, being an associate kind of pastor, being able to oversee staff and say, hey, I want to help you become the best version of you. And then seeing those people launch on to do great things, to just being a lead pastor of a campus and saying, hey, I want my whole team to become great, and watching people excel at what they're good at and figuring out how can I help you do that. So I think in every seat I've sat in, and then now I get to sit in this kind of executive role, which really for me is just a sweet spot. It's where I don't have to carry the weight of the lead pastor anymore. And so that's kind of nice, but I get to just help people and team members and volunteers and high level leaders become better.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's my long story short. Well,
the definition, I think just everything you said there is that I get to help people, I get to lead people. I'm in a good spot. I don't feel like I have to have all the spotlight on me. I mean, that just, you're a servant. You kind of just
I enjoy it, man.
Yeah, you say yes to what God calls you to do, and that's what I love about you. You're kind of I feel like you could lead a massive youth ministry. Or you could speak to 70-year-old men who have been living, what?
Yeah.
How old are you?
47.
Yeah, so 47. So, I mean, you've got that kind of almost like that chameleon kind of leadership to where you can morph yourself, and there's just, and not a lot of people have that. I mean, you've got like really super high-level leaders that, I'm only going to influence high-level executives and individuals and lead pastors that really don't want to talk to anybody else, and it's just I'm kind of signing autographs kind of thing. But you can come down to, a guy that just gave his life to Jesus, who's super raw, who used to be an alcoholic, and you can also go out in the backyard and throw a football with a 16-year-old that, So I feel like that's just a really cool thing. Servant leadership. I think there's a huge difference between servant leadership and then just like, hey, I'm a leader, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the NFL, you look at, professional sports teams, you would say, well, this guy is the leader of our team because he's good at what he does. And, and behind the scenes, you don't really know. But what's the difference between servant leadership and just leadership?
Yeah. I think in the context that I've been able to experience and see, I think everyone has the capacity to lead. And I think you'll hear different leaders say different things. Everybody's a leader. I don't know if everybody is a leader. I think everyone has the capacity to lead. And then I think ultimately you get to choose what kind of leader you ultimately want to be. I think just generic leadership oftentimes is leadership that's driven through position. It's driven through title. It's, I became the CEO, or I am the manager, or I am the district whatever. I am the lead pastor. Like I am the youth pastor. Like I'm the guy placed in charge of you. Therefore, I get to lead by title. And leading by title can only go so far. And I think at some point, and I know for me, I've been there, where that only gets you to a certain place. And I would agree that, with John Maxwell, that, leadership is influence. But I would also say it's not just influence, it's how you gain that influence.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a motivation behind it. If I'm just trying to get influence with you so I can become a better leader, then it's kind of selfish leadership, really.
Yeah.
And so to me, servant leadership is, I think, to the core of what it is, it's me saying, I want to leverage who I am and what I have to actually make you better. Because if I make you better, I will become better. And so it's not a what can you do for me scenario. It's what can I do for you?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like that's the model, right? Like that is, you can read, all these different guys. Ken Blanchard has a bunch of great stuff. And like all these different people have stuff out there about servant leadership. And what's funny is guys that started writing books about servant leadership. I think Ken Blanchard's one where he started writing about servant leadership, and then he was kind of distant in his faith. And he came to a point where he was in an interview with someone, and they actually pointed out that Jesus was the greatest servant leader. And he was like, I don't know about that. And the guy went through the whole list of everything he wrote in like his 1 Minute Manager or 1 Minute Leader book or 1 Minute Manager book. And he realized like, oh my gosh, everything I've been teaching, Jesus actually did. And so he realized that he stole everything from Jesus, which he thought was, he thought he was killing it out there. And it's like, dude, you just stole everything Jesus said. But that is what Jesus did. It's what his model was. It's the way he led. He wasn't afraid to confront people. He wasn't afraid to be tough if he had to be tough. But Jesus leveraged himself to make the 12 better. And the 12 changed the world. And so I think from early on, I think I realized that. I think I saw a model of it. I think I saw it in my dad growing up, that, my dad was just a constant servant to everyone, and every scenario that he was in, every time I would see him interact with people, he served. And I watched it. And so I think early on for me in my leadership, I realized that it's just part of the way I'm wired is how can I serve people? And if I can serve you and help you become better, in the end, I will become better. And ultimately, the organization will grow. But I'm going to do that by leveraging who I am for you.
Yeah. So
to me, that's kind of the difference. Like one is very title driven, position driven, authoritative, where I think a servant leadership can still be all of those things, but just your motivation shifts.
Yeah. I feel like that's where the big shift has been for me. And it's so simple though, right? I mean, hey, be an influential leader and lead because you want others to be better, instead of like, hey, how can I train this person to be a great leader so that way I can become better and I can 100%. Get where I want to get. But I think that's been the biggest transition for me as of just lately, is that, and leadership, because I haven't always done it well. And one of the questions I'll ask later is that, like, how can you tell somebody's a good leader? But it's funny because I've always kind of been a loner. I didn't grow up in a home where, my dad is a great man, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he gave me like extreme like leadership skills, and especially from a biblical standpoint, there was a lot of just divide in my family. My mom was Southern Baptist, my dad was Catholic, and so we didn't really talk about faith a whole lot. Yeah. And so therefore, because we didn't have a lot of faith or leadership in that way, there wasn't a whole lot of leadership. It was like, hey, work hard, go as hard as you can, and try to make something of yourself.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, which is a great quality.
It's a great work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of a blue collar family kind of thing. But I kind of adopted that grind, work hard, and that carried me so far.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying and I forget, how old are you?
I just turned 41.
Okay. So I think there's this, I think there's a good understanding of like, even just generationally, when you start looking at, we always think the generation beneath us is lazy, right?
Mhm.
They've been doing this since the beginning of time. Every generation that's coming up is going to ruin the world. And so we always think that. But like when you look at who you are in your like 20s and especially like young 30s, mid 30s, you're trying so hard to prove to everyone. You're trying to establish yourself. You're trying to prove like, okay, I'm going to make it. I'm going to show you who I am. I'm going to show you how good I am. I'm going to show you how strong I am. I'm going to prove to you I'm a good dad. I'm going to prove to you I'm a good boss. Like whatever it is, like you're constantly trying to prove. And I think that for most people, you come to a moment, some people earlier, some people later, but you come to a moment where I think you suddenly start to realize like what am I doing? Like I don't have to prove. And I think that's the beauty of like getting to your 40s. Like you start to realize I don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Mhm.
Like this is who I am. This is the way God's wired me. I am a good husband. I can just be a good dad. And I don't need anybody to tell me that. I don't need anybody to praise me for it. And I think when you start to settle into that place, it is like, it's such a healthy place to be mentally and emotionally, when you're no longer trying to prove it. When you're not trying to fight for it. You're not trying to, man, I need my wife to understand how hard I was. Like, no, you don't. Like she already knows.
Yeah.
Just work hard.
Yeah.
Like I don't need anybody to pat me on every once in a while, a pat on the back, a kind word is great.
Yeah.
But like I don't need it because I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a point, I think, in church planting where I think that clicked for me. And I think for the earlier years, I was just trying to prove like, man, we're going to be successful. We're going to do this thing and we're going to make it work. And I'm going to show everybody that I can do it. And I think there was a shift that took place at some point where all of a sudden I realized, who am I doing this for? If we're just doing it to reach people, then what do I care?
Yeah.
Like we'll be successful.
Yeah.
If we just do what the model is, if we do what we feel like Jesus called us to do, then what we're doing will work.
Yeah. For me, it was, I think, because that's what my 30s were. Mm-hmm. It was kids quickly.
Yeah. I think all of us were.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and it was like, hey, I need to make sure that my wife knows that I'm a good father. And, and then in the doctor world, it's, hey, growing and leading. And then, you're going to conferences and everybody's just like, the award stage. And there's a bit of comparison there. Absolutely. Of like, hey, how's this person doing? Well, if I'm here, I'm good. And there's a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I don't know why. And at 40, I just kind of threw my hands up and just said, I really don't care what anybody kind of thinks of me. And even my wife will tell me like just so you know, like you're doing a good job, but you don't have to tell me and ask me all the time. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I'm doing the best I possibly can, and I'm in a good place. But I can't tell you there was one moment where it just kind of everything shifted for me. But I will tell you that it was brokenness. It was like I finally got to a point where I was kind of like, I have to like mentally, one, stop comparing my day-to-day to everybody else's highlight reel.
Absolutely.
But then number two is that the only person that I really need to try to, I guess, honor every day is God and just being Jesus with skin on. And, and at the end of the day, I tell this story a lot, but in my 30s, I think I was in my late 30s, and I came home and I was telling my second son at the time, Ezekiel, I was like, hey, Daddy did this and that. Like, what do you think? And he goes, can we play Legos? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I mean, that's how important.
I don't care. Yeah.
Right. I mean, care. I don't really care. And so I kind of just, cause coming from a family that, my parents, my mom still works 7 days a week. My dad is the guy that mows yards on the side, works for an asphalt company. And then when he gets time off, he'll go grade, somebody's driveway or go help plant. He's just, but we didn't, grow up with like a ton of money and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like you come out of something like that and you're trying to prove something.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think one of the worst things you could ever do as a leader is lead out of trying to prove to other people that, and that's when it becomes about you.
Yeah. If you're constantly, as a leader, if you're constantly trying to establish some form of respect from people of, I've earned it. I need you to respect me. I need you to, like, you're going down dangerous territory, right? Like you're moving towards narcissism at that point of like, I need people to praise me. I need people to notice how good I am. I need people to honor me when I walk in the room. Like when you get to that place as a leader, I think there's either a really hard reflective look into yourself that you need to do, or you just need to realize like that's when God's going to humble you, right? Like there's a humility that we need to have in leadership. And when you get to the place where you feel like, man, I really am this good. Like, man, just get ready to get punched in the face with something. Cause it's coming at that point,
dude.
And I've watched it so many times. I've experienced it on some levels, but I've just watched so many leaders. Just the moment you get to that place where you no longer serve people, you no longer really genuinely care about people. You don't care about your team anymore. People are expendable. People are just staff. Like I can replace you. Like when you have that mindset towards people, I think there's a humbling period coming in your life.
Yeah.
One way or another.
It's good.
But
it's good. Maxwell talks about this concept like the law of the lid, and basically like a leader's ability or potential, or you could say like it's a ceiling, right? Like the leader who's leading their ceiling can have an impact on the longevity or the growth of an organization. What have you done like to raise your lid over the last however many years? Like, you know what I mean? Like, on like, whether that be, a couple of things that you can give guys from a men's standpoint. Maybe it has nothing to do with just the church, but as a father, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's one thing to know that you're well loved and that you don't have to prove anything to anybody, but it's also one thing to say, I'm constantly working on, like, if you were good, like you wouldn't get up and work out and take care of yourself. It would just be like, well, I'm good now. Like, what are some things that you can give men specifically that would say, how do I constantly work to improve my potential so my lid is growing?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I adopted, I think when I turned 30, so it was a while ago. I decided at 30 that I was going to every year try to do something that I've not done before.
Yeah.
And so I just started to find like challenges, whether it was, I want to read a certain amount, or I want to do this workout that I've never done, or I've never done this kind of race before, and I'm going to do a bike race, or I'm going to do a little sprint triathlon, or whatever it was. Like I'm a person that enjoys, and you and I've had this conversation, like I enjoy the goal. Like I want to put something out there in front of me that makes me kind of train or work for it. I've grown into discipline, but discipline's not easy. Yeah. By definition, it's not the easy thing to do. So I think for a lot of men, especially, I think we can settle into just our day to day. Yeah. And we stop pushing ourselves. We stop challenging ourselves. And I think, not to get into any of the anything too deep, but I just think it's part of how we're wired. I think men enjoy challenge. Yeah. And I think if we stop pushing ourselves and stop challenging ourselves to do things that are just hard, we lose some of that muscle, whether it's mind muscle or it's heart muscle or it's just the physical muscle. We lose a piece that makes us who we are. And so early on, I just decided, and I told my wife, like, hey, I'm not going to go crazy with this. Like, I'm not going to become this triathlon guy that's just grinding all the time, never has time to be home. But I want to find things that are hard to do, and I just want to do them.
You don't need to be David Goggins, but
no, I don't, and I don't strive for that, right? Like like we talked at the very beginning, like there's balance in life. There's the ability to still be a good dad and a good worker and a good whatever. So for me, having those little moments out in front have really driven just the disciplines that I need. And so I don't want to go don't work out for 6 months and then go, oh, you know what? I want to run this 12-hour race. Well, that's going to take a ton of work to get back to there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we joke around like on our team, but we always say this, like, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready, you know? And
good.
so I get up in the morning and I work out and I do my thing and I'm in a good place and I eat well and all those things because I don't know what that next challenge is going to be. I started looking into this thing that I was actually going to talk to you about at some point about doing this. It's like I can't remember what it's called, the 29-0-29. It's like an Everest hike.
Yeah. No, my wife and I were going to do it.
Yeah. So you go and like you hike this mountain
Yeah.
and then you take the ski lift down and you do it again. And ultimately at the end of the day, you hike the height of Everest. And it's like, yeah, I would love that.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate it in the moment, but in my brain, it's like, man, I want to do something like that. That's hard. I just want to do hard things every once in a while. So,
and you've got something like, I think it's actually like timed. You have so long to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have 36 hours.
And at the end, they had like at the bottom of the ski, they got like these like really comfortable tents with wine and cheese.
Yeah.
And you can stay there and
there's
they
almost
do it
a
on
temptation
purpose.
to keep you there, yo.
Yeah.
And so I think like there's a physical side of it and then there's a mental side of it. I think the more you do hard things and you accomplish them, the easier it becomes. And then when you face something that's actually hard, because like, you know, running a race isn't really hard in life in the scheme of things. Then when you go through hard things, like you kind of have the mental fortitude to handle difficult things in life. People are like, man, how are you able to handle that? I've been doing hard things for a long time. Like, and I force myself to do hard things. I don't stumble into hard things and then struggle. And so I think we've lost some of that. I think just as men in general, I think in culture, we like such ease and we like things to be so comfortable and simple and fast that we've lost the ability to do hard things at times. Yeah. And then when hard things happen, we crumble. And you watch it all the time with people. Like people just fall apart when something hard comes in their life. And it's like, I have my relationship with God all the time. So my relationship with Jesus is my cornerstone. But then like I've also just done hard things and I've pushed myself in different ways. So whether it's, you know, I'm going to do the 1-year Bible and I'm going to do it every year because all the way up through my 30s, I tried and I failed every single time. Ever since I was a kid, I've tried to do the 1-year Bible. I could never do it, ever do it. And so somewhere in my 30s or late 30s, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I don't know why I keep failing. And I did it. And I did it again. So I've been doing it every year for the last 6, 7, 8 years. And so it's like, I did something that was hard, accomplished it. And then the next time it wasn't quite as hard. Yeah. And so now it's just a rhythm. It's the rhythm of, man, I get up, I read, I do this, I do my thing, and then I do my workout. And so by 7 a.m., I feel like I've done as many hard things as I need to do. Nothing else in my day is going to be as hard. Yeah. And so I think there's just a mindset shift. So that might have been a long
it's good. It's good. Regimen and discipline, consistency. I mean, those are all the things that I think men are like lacking, and therefore because it's actually really Warrior 3 and like with the WOD and the Word and the whole Warrior 40 thing that I created or God, you know, kind of put on my heart was, absolutely. And the reason why I wanted to get people out of the traditional like men, hey, and there's nothing against this, like, hey, come to a, you know, Sunny Street Cafe and have, you know, fried eggs and bacon and coffee and talk about the Word. Yeah, sounds great. But what it is, it's all good. But what I'm saying is that I feel like there's something about challenge and doing hard things that, number one, opens men up. Because here's what I know. Every guy I've ever talked to, some of the greatest like seasons of their entire life have come in their high school years. And in high school, like it was very regimented. Like you played sports, like you were on a team. And I remember like the high school weight room. It was like Metallica, and like we were just like getting after it and like PRing and bench pressing.
Every
and
day was a PR day,
dude. It was and then we hung out. We were close. Like we went through battles together. We won together. We lost together, and it was like we got something to go towards. Like I remember in high school, we had this saying, and we had T-shirts, and it was like RMA and like right mental attitude, and gotta earn the right to wear that shirt. And it was like such, like it was an honor, you know. And then we graduate high school, we basically, most guys, stop doing anything physical. We go to college, we, drink and put on 20 pounds, and we get into a corporate world. All of a sudden we meet somebody, we get married. We have lost like all of the ability to say, I'm going to do something hard. And then to get a guy back into a routine of hard things, it's like, I'm sore.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think there's something about like that hard thing, regimented, and just setting a goal and saying, hey, and this is what I tell guys all the time. It's like, let's say you don't, end up doing a marathon, but man, the habits that you created and setting something like that.
I just did a whole talk on habits recently, and part of the conversation that we were having was, we all want to have good habits. We all want healthy habits in our life. It's just sometimes hard to get there. And I think one of the keys is, and I say this to my kids all the time. I tell people this all the time. Like, we're all going to fail. We're all going to set goals, and we're all going to fail. And so just the reality that you are going to fail at your goals. Just don't fail 2 days in a row.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, it's not rocket science. Just don't fail 2 days in a row. So if you said, man, I'm going to get up every day at 6 a.m. and I'm going to read my word, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes on the treadmill, just walking, just to get moving, whatever. And if you one day, man, I'm just super tired, and you sleep in, don't beat yourself up. Just don't do it again tomorrow. And so it's really not as hard as we make it seem. Of, the typical mentality is, oh, I failed, I'm a failure, and we just stop and we quit. It's like, well, you don't have to quit. Just don't do it 2 days in a row. Just don't fail 2 days in a row. And guess what? You're not a failure.
Yeah.
And just because you fail doesn't mean like somehow that defines you. That is now who you are. And I think just kind of close the loop real quick. Like you said, like practical things. I think some practical things that I would encourage men to do, or encourage really anybody to do. But when it comes to like servant leadership and how do I do this better, I think number one, you listen more than you speak. I think a servant leader listens. And if you find yourself being the person who does all the talking in a meeting, you're probably not a servant leader. If you're just constantly telling everyone everything you know. So I think just listen more than you speak. I'm in this process now with some people of just like, man, be curious. Just be curious. Like everybody knows that you're the leader. Like you're the boss, you're the manager. People know that you know things, but just be more curious.
That's
Ask
good.
questions.
People already know that you're a leader, so shut up.
Yeah. So it's like you don't have to prove anything. So it's like, man, listen more than you speak. Get to know your team's struggle. Get to know the people around you. Ask your kids, like, man, what are you struggling with? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish this year in school? Or what do you want to do to get ready to play sports? Or you ask more questions. And then I think two is you empower others. You listen a lot, and then you give people opportunity to have responsibility, not just do tasks. So I think saying, hey, I want to empower you to own this thing. So, you've got, you got a new doc in your practice, and it's like, how horrible would it be if every day he showed up, you sat down with him, you said, hey, here's the 15 things I need you to do today. And you just went down a list, but it's like, no, we're going to go through a learning each other process. But then at some point I have to empower you to take responsibility and have ownership in what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be a task manager, Now you're still a leader and a servant leader. And so it's like, hey, I want to understand, how's everything going? Talk to me about what you're struggling with. What are some frustrations? How can I help fix that? And I think that's what you do. And then 3, ultimately, you lead by example. I think the best way for you to become a good servant leader is to serve people around you and to show them, this is how I want you to lead. Yeah. This is how I want you to treat people. So you don't ask people to do what you're unwilling to do yourself.
Yeah.
I think ever since I became a camp counselor when I was in high school, counseling middle school camp, like that was my motto. Man, I'll never ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So if we're doing the nastiest game and I'm asking you to get all covered in mud and run down a slip and slide, I'm going to be right there with you doing it. And like, I always found that model just worked. It built a great team. Like we always had more fun, and being in it with people. I think as a leader, you quickly realize, this is how I want my team to treat other people. I want you to lead in this way. So yeah, you know what? There's a lot of things that I don't have to do as a leader, as an executive pastor. Like, I didn't have to jump on a bus yesterday and ride with a group of middle school, high school kids to camp, but I'm going to, because that's the kind of leader I want to be. And that's the kind of leader I want my team to be.
Yeah.
I want them to lead that way. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to do the things that I may not have to do. And we always say, I don't have to, I get to. I get to do this. I get to be a part of this team. I get to serve students. I get to come in and help put your luggage in a U-Haul. Like, it wasn't on my to-do list for that day, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I always tell my team that you can't be led by somebody that you can't follow, meaning that, being a lifestyle clinic, or even with like Warrior 3 and our coaches, it's like, listen, like if you're not, staying on top of your fitness and you're not having a good, nobody's perfect, but if you're not, in God's word daily and you're on your fifth marriage, but you're not necessarily working on, it's really difficult for somebody on the outside to look in and say, like, I would love to follow that person. But you have to be willing to do what you're going to ask other people to do. My doctors especially, I said, listen, if we're telling patients that they need to eat this way and change and stay away from sugar and, Starbucks and, some of the, Frappuccino stuff, and then home rehab for your spine and taking care of, like, you have to do that. Like, cause if you don't, then, you're being a hypocrite.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And I said, listen, at the end of the day, if you're doing those things and you're in alignment with what it is that you're preaching, you can lay your head down at night knowing that you did everything you possibly could, even if the people that you're trying to lead didn't follow what you asked them to do. That's, absolutely. Not for you, but it's just, it's, and nothing's perfect. So, little bit of a transition. Like I'm a dad of all boys, which I love that. But you're a father of sons and daughters, right? See,
daughter,
just one. Okay, daughter, but still, there's a different dynamic there. I tell my boys, like, if we end up having a little girl, a lot of things in our home is going to need to change. You can't run around naked and pee off the back porch just randomly. Maybe, but
I'm still good.
Talk about like leading in a world that's always changing. We got a lot of listeners, dads that have kids, and it's just the world is different than what it was when we were growing up.
Very,
different personalities, having to navigate a world of constant chatter, social media. The last 4 years with COVID and just different things, and how I say, hey, I tell my boys as Shriners, here are the values that we have in our home, and I have to model those values. I have to lead by those, but absolutely. I would love to just hear, how do you navigate that? We talked about it, like your kids are at that point where they're in college, and like a lot of the things that you have led them early on in life, you're getting to see the fruit of that in their lives now. How do you navigate that? How do you lead them well in a world of just constant change and chatter and people valuing certain things that I know that your family doesn't value? How do you do that?
Well, I think one, realize that you're not perfect. So we have one perfect father, and that's it. And none of us are it. So take some of that pressure off of yourself. I think we tried to keep things really simple. So we've got 4 kids, 23, 21, 17, and 15. And so I've got a son who's wrapping up college, getting married, a son that's 1 year left in college, a daughter getting ready to go to college, and then a son who's in his sophomore year in high school. So we're kind of all over the place right now. We got a lot of different things going on. Big year for life for us. But we are sitting back right now, my wife and I, and we are enjoying this season because we are watching the fruit of our labors. And so I think that the thing that I encourage a lot of people to do, especially when their kids are young, is understand that all that work is worth it, but it is hard work, and there's no way around it. Parenting is hard, and so it's constant. It's hard discipline. It's hard boundaries. It's difficult work, but it's with a goal in mind. And I think as a parent, you have to realize, like, there has to be a goal in front of us that we're working towards. So do you just want to have, if your goal is to have happy kids, then you're going to handle things differently. if your goal is to just have kids that are, successful, make money, go to college, get an education, make money, then your goals will shift. So what is your goal? Our end goal, we kind of had like two things really. We wanted our kids to number one, we wanted our kids to want to be around us when they got older.
That's good.
And so we made this goal of like, I want my children to want to be around me when they don't have to. And I think we're doing okay at that. Like our kids, at least our kids, I think, enjoy being around us, or at least we tell ourselves that. But then we also said, we want our kids to have the right heart. We want them to have a heart that loves Jesus and loves people. And so we parented with that in mind. I'm not going to beat you up over every little thing because I'm not trying to make you perfect. I'm not trying to discipline and beat out of you every little thing that is just part of who you are, part of your nature. In the early years, we're going to be tough on, hey, this is how we treat people. This is how we talk to people. This is how you speak to your siblings. Our refrigerator had, I think 2 rules on it. Our house rules, or 3 was, number 1, you will always respect your mother. Like that was number 1 rule. So anybody that did anything to disrespect mom, like you felt it, you got dealt with. 2, we don't lie because lying dishonors everyone. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to honor, respect everyone by not lying. We're going to tell the truth in this house. And I think there's a 3rd one, but those are the 2 big ones. And so there wasn't a ton of, when we had to discipline, everything tied back into those 2 things. Because ultimately I want you to have a heart for people. So I'm going to parent your heart, not your behavior. I want to parent your heart. And then we're going to try to, as hard as we can, to do things that are going to help us keep relationship. That's why I want relationship over rules at all times. And so obviously young kids, heavy rules. You got to have rules. You got to have discipline. You got to help them understand the why behind some things as they start getting older. So they start making that transition where your oldest is now. Mm-hmm. It's helping them understand that why. Hey, here's why we treat people this way. Here's why we don't speak to mom that way. Here's why we get up and do our chores, whatever it is. Like there's a why behind it. And then as you're coming through that why portion, now it's like, I want to come alongside of you, and I want you to see that I'm actually here to help you become the best version of you. And so it's you move through this like discipline into a heart kind of posture, and then into this season of like I'm walking this out with you. I'm still your dad. I'm still gonna guide you, and sometimes I'm gonna have to prod you. Sometimes I'm gonna have to pull you. But I'm gonna try to walk this out with you, and then ultimately you get to this spot where like now we just have a relationship. Now I'm still your dad, but I kind of like enjoy hanging out with you now.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so I think there's a part of it as a parent, you have to understand what season you're in. And it's hard when you have multiple kids because you're in multiple seasons at the same time. So it's like I'm in a different season with my 23-year-old than I am with my 15-year-old. My 15, we're still guiding, we're still working through stuff. We're still figuring out relationships and social media and all the stuff that's going on in the world. And I'm in a different season with my daughter. Like one, she's a girl. And so just life is different with a girl, and you handle things a little bit different. But, so part of my job with her is I need you to understand like your identity is in who God calls you to be and who Jesus says you are, not in anybody else. Like I want you to have a strong identity of self. So that's like the transition that we've gone through is like everybody is at a different season. And that's some of the hard work of parenting, right? They're all in different spots. Like you get this, you've got a baby right now, and like, man, you're in a different spot with the baby as you are your oldest, and then everybody in between. It's like, it is hard work. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so I think as a parent, I think you step back and say, you know what? The work that we're doing is really hard.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why you're exhausted at the end of the night, and you're going to be there for a while. And so I think settle into it. Like this is the season that you're in right now, and it's going to be tiring, and it's hard work. It's painful at times, There's disappointing moments. There's highs and lows of all of it. But I think, I think that's the piece that I would always try to encourage parents to understand. Like, parent the heart more than anything.
Well, there's two things I get from that is that you just said, hey, it's hard. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're just trying to breathe. It sounds like, setting and doing something hard, like running a race or whatever. I'm in training for that, right? So we talked about that earlier, just the importance of doing something hard and how that prepares you for life and leading through that. I mean, my gosh, like running a marathon or running something like that, or even just setting a goal, and it takes consistency and discipline that just carries over. There's a lot of guys that are probably listening right now being like, man, I still haven't sat down with my wife and said, hey, what are the rules for our home? Mm-hmm. What are the foundations and the values? Like, like I think a lot of parents just, they listen to a podcast like this and they're like, oh crap. Like I'm trying to lead my sons and my daughters well, but like we haven't sat down and established values. Like, okay, you did, if you'd have done it really well before we had kids, it would have been like, hey, okay, so what are the values that we want to instill into our children? What are the rules? I mean, I love that. Don't disrespect your mother. What if those aren't on the fridge of a man who's listening and they have kids in their teens? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. I think you have to. I don't think you're ever too late in the game to start.
Okay.
So I would say, hey, take your wife out, have a date night, and say, hey, can we try to craft 2 or 3 things that we think, based on who we are, based on our values. So obviously, all of our values were going to be driven by Scripture, was going to be driven by a relationship with God. But like, if you don't have a relationship with God and you're trying to figure out how to do this, okay, what are your values? What are your goals? And then you sit down with your kids. And if your kids are older, I would probably involve them in the process. I'd probably say, hey, we realize that maybe we haven't done great at this. Yeah. And I think it's okay to admit that to your kids. Mm-hmm. But we want to be better. We want to help you guys become the best version of you. And I think the best way to do that is for us to all be on the same page. And so what do you guys think would be some really important things that we can all agree on, or like, this is how we do things here. Mm-hmm. So for us, like, this is how you be a steward. This is what Shriners do. You know? And I think if you can do that, if you can be honest about it, I think your kids will appreciate it, because your kids will ultimately understand the boundary, right? Like, everybody wants to know what their boundaries are. Every kid wants to have some type of, where's the edge? Yeah. Like, where's the boundary line? And if they never know it, they struggle. They struggle more, I think, when they don't know the boundary. And so giving them very clear expectations, very clear guidelines, very clear boundaries. And then how you behave within those boundaries, ultimately that's up to you.
Yeah. That's so good. I feel like a lot of parents now are so scared that their kids are going to, turn out horrible, or they're not, they're going to turn out maybe the way that they were. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were born again Christians. Their past wasn't good. I mean, I kind of sit in that particular, where it's like you're parenting out of fear. So I'm going to make sure that you don't get exposed to anything. So I'm basically going to hide you away from the world. Yeah. I'm not going to send you to school. I'm going to just basically make sure that you are here.
You're in a little protected bubble.
And what I see is that, now if you, it's okay if you want to do those things. I'm just saying that you better have values, and you better have guidelines, and you better allow them to fail. Like, you better allow them to be able to understand that.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like, that piece right there.
And not just kids, but leaders, like your staff. It's like, hey, I want you to go try this. Like, oh, really? You want me to do that? I'm like, yeah, I want to see how you'll handle the situation.
The best motivator, and I think the best growth tool in life, is failure.
Oh, sure.
You have to fail. And if you remove it's like you remove all the hard things, and you make life too easy for people, you don't learn, you don't fail, you don't realize that there are maybe other ways to do it. And so I think a huge part with your kids, we adopted this early on, was like, you're gonna work for yourself. You're gonna advocate for yourself. So when you have an issue with a teacher, I'm not swooping in. Yeah. Like, you're in middle school now. You have a problem in a class. We'll talk about it at home of how to go have that conversation. We'll work through it. We'll word play it. We'll sit down and we'll run the scenario. I'm your teacher. How would you come to me and ask me that question? Like, we'll work through that with our kids, but you're going to go have that conversation. Now, depending on how that conversation goes, if the teacher's receptive, if they dig in, if they're mean about it, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
okay, now as a parent, I need to have
Mhm.
a conversation. But if you're struggling in a class, you go to that teacher and you say, hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm not going to your school and solving this problem.
Mm.
You forget your lunch, man, you're going to be hungry today.
Yeah.
And guess what? Tomorrow, you're not going to forget your lunch.
Yeah.
And so I think we've removed that like opportunity of allowing our kids to learn their own mistakes.
Yeah.
They've got to learn. And I think just step back one notch. The reason why you don't disrespect your mother was so important for us. One, because you learn how to treat your mother, you'll learn how to treat your sister, but you also learn how to treat women.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our boys have learned how to treat girls.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a right way and a wrong way to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think men and women are different. And you're going to learn how to treat your mom
Mm-hmm.
in one way, which is also then going to influence the way you treat girls. And so
Yeah.
all of my boys have worked in different scenarios for different companies. And they've all had jobs where they've had opportunities to like, catering company or a floral company or whatever, doing like venues. And they all bring mom flowers home.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. And I love it. Like as a dad, I just step back and like my kids are coming through the door late at night and they set them up on the counter and they have these flowers that they know she likes and they got a little note for her.
Yeah.
Well, that's not ingrained. That wasn't like natural for them. That wasn't just something they were born to do. They learned how to respect their mom. And then they watched me do it from time to time. But really, like they understood this is how you treat mom.
Yeah.
And guess what? They all do it for girls that they like too.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's become part of who they are now.
And how many boys out there grow up in homes where they don't see mom being respected, and then we wonder why, so many just fatherless homes and things like that. I mean, it's a huge deal to allow your sons to see that being modeled, how to respect a woman, but then also like, I feel like, we're living in a culture where like, I even see some kids that when they come in the office, like they're not even allowed to speak. It's like, I asked the kid a question and mom's like, well, this is what he's going to do. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. And then what happens is that child or that boy gets into a relationship with a woman to where it's almost like he's never had to be uncomfortable. And so it's almost like, and I've even seen this a little bit in my marriage where I've almost been like, hey, my wife is supposed to be Jesus to me. And that's not how that works. Like she's going through her own struggles. Like it's like not even knowing how to communicate. Like men shut down regardless.
Yeah.
So to be able to communicate and have those like healthy relationships now and those boundaries and learn how to have those conversations with dad who's modeling that leads to, stronger men and stronger marriages and, less broken homes and so forth.
Absolutely.
So that's good, man.
100%.
Jesus was a lion and he was a lamb. I love that analogy. I think, one of the most popular tattoos I think that out there is like, the lion and the lamb, even if you're a Christian or not, it's just it's just a bad tattoo. But I feel like sometimes, in leadership, it's like, well, as a leader, Jesus was kind of like this hippie in flip-flops who was just never authoritative, especially from a Christian standpoint. But like when in leadership, is it okay to be a lion? And like when is it good to be a lamb? I mean, I think you hit on those just a little bit, but I think like, is it okay to, put your foot down and say, hey, here's what needs to have done as long as you're leading by example and you're being the example? Like give me an example.
I think in leadership, I would say it's when the time to be like a firm leader is when those agreed upon or stated values are being undermined. So as a leader, if I'm leading a staff and I know that we have these couple of values and one of them is about how we handle customers, and I see somebody on my team is handling a customer incorrectly, okay, I've got to pull that person in, and I have to have a firm conversation, because any behavior that goes undealt with sends a signal to everyone else on the team. It sends a signal that, one, you don't care as a leader. I don't really care about our values. I don't care about the thing that we said we said was important, which is how we handle customers, how we honor our customer, how we, if my child speaks out against, their mom, and I'm sitting there at the dinner table and they badmouth, backtalker, and I don't do anything. Well, in that moment, I'm communicating that value that we said about respecting your mom isn't really a value.
Yeah, it's just lip service.
It's just something.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of do it whenever I feel like it. Well, that's not consistent. And that's hard for kids to understand. It's hard for employees to understand. So I think as a leader, you have to say, hey, when our values get crossed, when somebody is undermining a stated value, I have to say something and I have to do something. Now, I think you do it in love.
Sure.
And I think it goes back to Jesus. Like, people always want to point out, Jesus going to the temple and flipping tables. Therefore, I have a reason to just go around and ruining people's lives or something.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Jesus had a very clear purpose, because his father's house was being disrespected.
Yeah, he loved his father so much that he was just
and
emotional.
ultimately disrespecting his house was disrespecting God, and it was all about the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so Jesus did that to say, look, this is what God said was the value. This is what I'm saying is the value, and you have disregarded the value. Therefore, I need to react to it. And he did it in a firm way. Does that mean that when, an employee does something wrong, you're going in and flipping a board table or whatever? Like, no, you don't. It's not a prescriptive way of doing it. It's a descriptive way of handling people. So I think there's moments where you have to be firm, but there's ways to be firm with people that honor people. And so we always call it like the velvet brick. It's I'm going to give you the compliment. I'm going to give you a little hard truth. And then I'm going to wrap it up with another compliment on the back end. So I want to tell you, man, I appreciate you so much, Brandon, for this, man. You're so good at handling this, and you're great with this person. And I've watched you do this, but hey, if I can just point something out, or something my wife, her team does, is they'll say, hey, can I give you a gift? Because the best thing I could do for you is to give you a gift of truth.
Oh man, that's good.
And if you allow me to give you a gift, I want to give you a gift. So I think there's a lot of ways you can do that. Probably don't have all the time in the world to deal with that, but there's ways of handling people in a way that you can end a confrontational, what could feel like a tense conversation. You can do it in a way that lets that person know, I still love you, still care about you, I still want what's best for you. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna say at the end of that meeting, hey, what do you need from me right now to help you accomplish this thing that we just talked about? What do you need from me? Because I'm still the guy that wants to help you become the best version of you. And so if I just end that meeting going, look, here's some stuff you need to work on. You need to be better at this. You need to stop doing this stuff. You need to fix this. All I'm doing is I'm just critiquing.
Yeah.
And I'm not coming in after it to say, hey, here's some things that we talked about. Now let's circle back around. What are some things that we can do to actually do that and make it better?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same in leadership, whether it's the workplace as it is at home. I think it's sitting a kid down and, hey, you know what? You disrespected your mom. I'm not going to flip the dinner table. I'm not going to slap my plate off the table. I'm not going to throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw a baby tantrum as a grown man. But I'm just going to say, hey, I need you to stop that. And right after this dinner, you and I are going to have a talk.
Yeah.
One, that puts a little bit of fear of God in them.
Yeah.
Like they're
sure.
like, oh
yeah.
man,
I have no idea what's going to happen right now, but.
And then the way you handle yourself as a dad in that moment sets the tone for how your child will deal with people.
Yeah.
So if we get to that room and I just lose my mind and I'm screaming at you and I'm just, guess what your kid's going to do whenever he has that similar situation in the future? He's going to lose his mind on people.
Yeah.
And so I think you have an opportunity to sit him down and say, hey, I need you to tell me what you did.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things to do is to care so much about people and the growth and the development of somebody who just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And not bring emotion into that. You know what I mean? Like almost
hard.
Like take a step back, breathe. And, just if you don't feel like even right now is the greatest time to have the conversation. You just, hey, let them
Absolutely.
know, hey, values have been,
Mhm.
mixed up a little bit. Like we need to have a conversation
Yeah.
before we move forward. Let's have coffee in 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
or something. You know what I mean? Because I have found that I want to get things fixed right now.
Yeah.
I just want to get them done right now. My wife and I are having an argument or something. It's like, okay, let's fix this.
Yeah.
And she's like, I kind of need some time. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean time? Like, let's do this right now.
Yeah. What do you need time for?
Like, what is that? So, being very cognizant of that.
And I think to that, there's two things I would recommend. I would say, one, you ask that person. So if it's a hard conversation, I would ask that person, hey, scale of 1 to 10, emotionally, where are you at right now?
Okay, that's good.
Because I have something that we need to talk about, but I want to make sure you're in a good place for it.
Yeah.
And I think just taking that little step, and if somebody's like, you know what, I'm not in a good place, then don't force it. Because if they're not in a good place, they're not going to receive it well.
Yeah.
And so you may have to say, hey, you know what, I don't want to do this right now. I want to give you a little bit of space, but there is some stuff we need to talk about. So if we can either do it towards the end of the day or maybe tomorrow morning, we'll just grab a cup of coffee and we can have this conversation then. I think it lets that person know, like, hey, I'm in control of my emotion. I'm not going to lose it on you. I think the other thing, and we actually did this past week with one of our kids. We've always done this. We've used the HALT method, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. We're not going to have any serious conversation if any of us are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. For my number 2 son, tired all the time, all the time. And so there were moments where he would come in hot and just upset, and this thing happened, and teacher, and blah, blah, the coach, and he's just fired up. And we'd go, hey, bud, how you feeling right now? He's like, I'm just so angry. I'm just so mad. Okay. Are you tired at all? Yeah. I'm exhausted. Okay.
I'm hungry.
Are you hungry a little bit? Yeah, I haven't eaten since lunch, and it's 6 o'clock. Hey, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't you take a little bit of time? We'll make you something to eat, and then we can just sit down and we can talk about it. And like as a parent, the moment you do that, it night and day difference.
Wow, that's
night
good.
and day difference for us as parents. Like, and we've done this with every one of our kids. Our oldest had a thing this week. He was all, and we stopped him and said, hey, bud, you look really tired. He's like, so beat up. Why don't we talk about this in the morning? Why don't you just go downstairs, get some good sleep, and then let's talk about it tomorrow morning. And he was a different kid.
Yeah.
And so, like, even though he's 23, he's not a child.
Yeah.
It's just a good practice for all of us. Like, I don't want to deal with my staff if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. If I feel lonely, I'm going to react differently to everybody. And so it's just learning how to take that deep breath, like you said. Sometimes, like, man, we need to have a conversation at home. My wife had a rough day. She just spent all day with young kids. She's exhausted.
Yeah.
And like, I'm coming in like, man, I'm super dad. I'm going to fix everything right now.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you need to read the room. Your wife just spent, 6 hours with a crying kid. She got pooped on, whatever. Like, she's had a rough day.
Yeah.
You just went to the office. Your day was not as bad as hers. And so it's like realizing I need to take a step back, and I'm going to give you some space. And hey, what if we went on a walk a little bit later? What if we just went for a walk and we just talked about some stuff while we walked? Man, that's togetherness. You're spending time with her. You're doing something to get her away from the crazy or whatever it is. Like, hey, can we just sit on the back porch when all the kids go down? Can you and I just sit? That's a different conversation than I'm walking in the door to chaos and I'm actually adding chaos,
Yeah.
To the moment. So,
Yeah, I think that HALT, man, that's huge. I think every single one of my boys in some way, shape, or form, when they're going through a rough time, has one of those things. As a leader of a team, as a male leading other females, just going through different things, different stages of life. I mean, those are, man, that's a great way. Not just with kids, but with just adults as well. It's like, hey man, you look tired. Yeah, my kid's been up all night.
Yeah.
Puking on me. Okay, well, hey, we need to address some things. But how about we, get a good night's sleep. I'll let you go home a little early today.
And it goes back to that just being curious, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to be curious. I want to understand where you are right now, how you're feeling. And if we need to have a hard conversation, any conversation, but especially anything that is conflict driven.
Yeah.
You just want to do it in the right headspace. You want to do it at the right time. There's certain times of the day that aren't great times of the day. At the end of a work day is not the best time to sit down and just beat somebody up. Man, nobody's in a good space right then.
Yeah.
So there's right timing. There's all those things. But I think in the workplace, it's being curious about your team. It's being curious about your family. It's understanding where your kids are at, and it's giving people grace to say, hey, you may not be in a great spot right now, and that's okay. Let's circle back around. But I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write down the things I want to say. This would be the other thing I would recommend. Write down what you need to say. Because oftentimes we get heated.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been running this scenario through our heads for hours, sometimes days. And so we've got this whole thing mapped out in our brain. And we're going to be on all these different tangents. We're just going crazy in the conversation. We're bringing up stuff from 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But
sympathetics kick in.
I need to list out. There's 2 or 3 things we need to work on. There's some things we need to talk about. These are the 2 or 3 things. And I'm not going to bring up anything else. It's just these things. And you can keep that conversation quick, succinct, and walk away still caring about each other.
Yeah.
So.
And even if that other person blows up in your face and it doesn't go the way you want to, at least you stuck to your guns and you can stay. Not that you want to play it safe, but at the same time, you're protecting yourself from potentially, an employee or somebody in a confrontation. You're just steady Eddie in that way.
I feel like I've had very few confrontational moments with either leaders above me or people that worked for me. I've had very few volatile situations if I come in and set the tone. Yeah. So if I'm coming in and I'm calm and I'm kind of laying it down, hey, where are we at right now? Scale of 1 to 10. What are you feeling? Okay, cool. Hey, there's a couple things I want to talk about, but before we get there, let me just tell you how much I appreciate you. Yeah. Like the moment you kind of get going on that, I feel like if it shouldn't ramp up unless there's really something else going on, Sure. It's probably not what you wrote down. Yeah. And if that happens, I think it's also the understanding of like, I'm going to give you the grace to know something else is probably going on in your life. We tell our kids that all the time. When somebody reacts towards you about something, hey, you know what? They may be having some issues at home. Yeah, it's not you. You don't know what happened. Just know there's probably something going on. I would encourage you to give them grace on this. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I think they had this thing going on at home with mom, or dad did this thing, or something happened, grandma died, or whatever. Like it was always something else. And then they were getting the brunt of that person's emotional response. Yeah. So it's good. Last question as we begin to wrap up here. Let's say your 20-year-old self, if you had to go back and, you got to have a conversation or a sit down with like John Maxwell himself, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, what would be that one thing that you would like to tell men about leadership that you wish you would have known earlier, or you would have? There's like a lot of young guys, in their late 20s, early 30s that are just getting ready for that craziness of life. They're getting kids. They're trying to, climb the corporate ladder. Like if there's one thing that you wish you would have realized early on, I mean, you've done a really good job. But is there one thing that you feel like, man, I wish if I would have realized this earlier, it would have changed a lot of just, not that struggle's bad and that comfort's good. Mm-hmm. It would have just helped me. I think in a lot of areas, I would want to go back and tell my younger self that leadership is more about action than good intention. So I think I got stuck in this place of like, as a young leader, learning a lot, reading a lot, listening to stuff. Like I was just constantly trying to consume. Yeah. And I had really good intentions, but I don't think I was always a good doer of the things that I knew I needed to just do. Yeah. So I think sometimes we can get caught up in, we're reading and we're consuming and we're podcasting and we got all this content coming in. But at the end of the day, you got to do something with it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's putting it into practice. And so I think, reminded like in scripture of not just being a hearer, but being a doer.
Yeah.
And so we can't just hear the information. We can't just take in the gospel. We can't just take in the good news. We can't just take in scripture. We have to do something with what we've been given, with what we're picking up. And so I think not just being a hearer of the word, a hearer of leadership principles, a hearer of parenting skills, put something into practice.
Yeah.
Like what's that one thing you can do today that will help you get a little bit closer to what you ultimately want? And for some, it's like, you know what? My one thing today is just make my bed.
Yeah.
Like I've been trying this, and there's a guy that wrote a whole book about like just make your bed.
Yep.
It's a great book, and it's a great concept of like start your day with just a win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for some men, we just need to start our day with a win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Big time.
Hey, get out of bed. Don't worry about 30 minutes in the Word. Spend 5 minutes.
Yep.
Just read something. Read
Yep.
a chapter. Read something in the Gospels. Read
Yep.
about Jesus. How did Jesus handle people? In your parenting, what's one thing I could do today to tell my kids that I love them? Well, it's just one thing. Doesn't have to be a big thing. Doesn't have to be a crazy thing. Doesn't have to be expensive. But what's one thing I could do? And oftentimes it's time.
Yeah.
I'd say, can we just play Legos?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I can play Legos with you today.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what is the one thing I can do to improve relationships? What's the one thing I can do to help an employee? What's one thing I can do to help my team? And so being a doer, not just a hearer. So I think on a practical level, don't just learn about parenting, do parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Don't just read leadership books, lead people.
Mm.
Don't just listen to wisdom, act on it. So
Yeah.
you got to do something with it.
Yeah.
And I think early, I wasn't always great at it. I think I consumed a lot of material, and then I didn't act on it fast enough. And I think that was,
dude, so good. I got a lot of buddies, and just spent a ton of money on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching organizations, leadership, podcast, all these different things. But yet, man, just do it. Like there's all these different concepts, and so man, that's huge. That's huge.
You
man.
can chase stuff down all day,
right?
And I'm never against coaching, never against conferences, but I went through a season. I'd be at all these different conferences every year.
Yeah,
but just gotta learn. And then I went through a whole season of I'm not going to any conferences until I actually start doing some of this stuff.
I got all these notebooks.
We got to implement something.
Right. I got all these notebooks and all these notes that I take. And all
coaching is great, right?
Yeah.
If you're stuck, if you find yourself just in a place in business, or like if you're a business owner and you're trying to figure out I need to move this ball forward,
Mm-hmm.
and like, okay, I need a coach to come in, somebody that's a pro, they can speak into this, give me some wisdom, but they're also going to give you some practical tools, and it's really up to you to do something with it.
Oh yeah.
So there's seasons where you need it, but if you always need a coach, if you always need there comes a point where you're just needing somebody else to tell you what to do.
Oh sure, and you're lacking discipline.
You're just lacking the discipline to do it,
and you don't want to be boringly consistent.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the best thing, right? Like, man, my marriage would make the worst movie. It would be the worst movie ever. It's boringly great.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. Like,
sure.
I don't need drama.
Oh yeah,
I'm good.
Some of the best businesses and some of the most successful entrepreneurs I know, boringly consistent.
Yeah.
They're like, that's it. And I'm like, that's it. And they're like, but just do it every day.
Every day.
And I'm like, every day.
It's a crazy concept, isn't it?
It's great. It's great. Hey man, I appreciate you being on the podcast. I appreciate you just for your your leadership and the example that you set for men. And I appreciate you coming to workouts and being a warrior man. I mean, I can't say that for everybody, but you really do live, lead, and love strong. So I appreciate you. So
absolutely, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
appreciate it.